Thank you very much. Is this the same group I talked to a while ago? Change clothes. If it is, different questions. Let's see all of you. It's darker in here.
Put that light on.
Do we have any questions?
You were with Red Foley in 46 or so.
Yeah.
And they took away your slot playing where you were a main guitarist in front.
Yeah.
And you had a steady job there, I guess, but you just opted to quit.
Yeah, well, I always wanted to be a star. And Red Foley brought me to Nashville in 1946. I was working with Johnny Jack over at WPTF in Raleigh, and I'd gotten fired in Cincinnati at WLW, so I went down to Johnny Jack there for about 3 months, and I heard that Red Foley was going to take over the Prince Albert portion of the Grand Ole Opry, and so I thought if he heard me play, maybe he'd take me with him. So I went to Chicago and hung around his manager's office. Finally, he came in one day and I played a tune for him, and he said, how'd you like to go to Nashville with me, Chess? Oh, Chess. And so I came down here, and he needed a rhythm guitar player, and I talked him into hiring Louis Ennis, another friend of mine who'd gotten fired a lot. We hung around together. So we had hired Louis, and Louis was with him for several years. But I remember I worked with Red, I guess, about 6 months, and we were driving out Gallatin Road one day. We're going on a show date, and I said, hey, Red, I'm going to get to record for Bullet Records. And he said, you're all right, Chess. I said, I thought you'd stay with me and just be a sideman. I said, no, I want to be a star like you, Red. So I knew my time was limited with him. I love Red. I love Red, but I didn't want to. But anyway, yeah, I played a solo. They would let me play a solo after a commercial or going into a commercial or something. I don't remember. Those shows, they were written, scripted and everything, but they would need somebody that could play, and they'd give you this and you'd end. And I could do that. And years later, Grandpa Jones was on there, and he was doing the same thing, I guess, playing a little banjo, and they'd tell me it's got to be shorter, Grandpa, at rehearsal, it's got to be longer. Finally, he just hit a chord and said, is that short enough for you? And Grandpa, by the way, we were telling Grandpa stories. I went to lunch with Ray Stevens, and who else? Well, a boy that works for him, and Harry Warren works at BMI. But they were getting me to repeat a story I told on the Ralph Emery show the other morning about Grandpa. He went somewhere and they asked him to ask a blessing, and he asked the blessing, and he can't remember a dang thing. You know, he can't remember anybody's name like me. And he got to the end of the prayer, and he wanted to say, in Jesus' name we ask it, and he said, well, what's his name? I know he doesn't. And another story, somebody told while I was out there, well, I think Connie Smith told it. He worked somewhere a few years ago, and I think they paid him about $3,000 or $5,000 or something. And so a lot of these guys like that play these fairs and everything, they get their money and they count it. Some of these folks will cheat you. And the guy gave him the money in cash, and he counted it twice, and he was starting to count it again. And the guy said, is there something wrong, Grandpa? Isn't it all there? And is it all there? And Grandpa said, just barely. But you get around George Lindsay. I played golf with George Lindsay, you know, Goober, not too long ago, and for 4 hours all I heard was Grandpa's stories. That's where Tennessee Ernie Ford got his act, by the way. He was following Grandpa around all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, is there any chance you may one day get to do an album of all the #1 hits that you produced?
I did that right before I left RCA. I did an album, and we couldn't think of a title for the dang thing. It's talking about hits that I produced with other people, and I did that right before I left. I did medleys of this and that, and it's the last album I did for RCA. I don't remember now what the title is, but we never could come up with the title. Hits I produced with other people, or and people don't care about that anyway. They just want to hear the artist who did the song. Yeah.
Out of all the tunes that you play over here, do you have any favorites that you'd like to go back and play?
I don't have any favorite. I don't like anything I play. Usually, I always hear where I could have done it better. So I never listen to my records or anything. But there's certain tunes I play. I play a couple of tunes Charlie Chaplin wrote. Smile. You know, he really was a genius, that guy. Smile and eternally, I'll be loving you eternally. Da, 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 da. I think it's a beautiful melody. And I play some George Gershwin, some Jerome Kern things, like Old Man River. Then I heard the guy from Scotland play it here, Taylor, what's his name? I heard him play it and I quit trying to play it. I heard him play it once in England or somewhere. I was over there. I went to see Stephen Grappelli, and he gets that thing going with his thumb. Da, 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 da. He plays Old Man River with it. He's crazy.
There'll ever be a time that you would play the Little Nashville Opera in Nashville, and you'd love to see it there?
Oh, I might sometimes. I just go where they send me. And there's an old gospel song with that title, but never know sometime. Yeah.
Have you talked to the guy that runs the Little Nashville Opera about him? And we've tried everything in our power to get you down there, and he's ready for you. And he said he just wants to stick around Nashville, Tennessee. And work around Nashville, Tennessee. That's was the answer.
I do play out, but when I go out, I take a band and a road manager. You know, you got to get there, and it takes a lot of money to do that. So I play places that can afford to pay our hotels and travel, airline fare and everything, and they pay me a little, and so I can pay the boys. So it adds up there after a while. Yeah, somebody had their hand up.
Coach, yeah, of all the 2,000 tunes recorded, how many of those can you have in memory? At any one time?
Quite a few. I can remember a lot of the tunes, but some of them I've completely forgotten. But if it's an old standard, I can usually remember parts of it, and, but not all of the tunes. I have to go back. Ask Paul Yandell how they go, or check on a record. He knew, and Lenny Breau knew. He'd show me how I ended every tune, how I started every tune, everything. I think people that are fans tend to do that. They can remember things a lot better than I can, because I did those things off the top of my head. You know, I just say, well, I'll start it like this, and I'll end it like this, and then I never did it again, usually, because I didn't listen to the records, and if they weren't played a little, I didn't play them anymore. Yeah.
Did you have a lot of difficulty in the early days of working up your arrangements?
Yeah, I had a lot of, it wasn't easy for me to learn to play the way I play because I didn't have anybody to copy. So I studied, hung around classical guitar players and jazz guitar players and all these guys, and picked up licks here and there and chord positions that would help me play various tunes, and techniques too for the right hand. I picked up a lot from the classical players. Not a lot, a little bit, because the style I play is kind of pseudo-classic anyway. But from liking so many different kinds of music, I love all kinds of music, and I think if you're a jazz cat that hates everything else, I think you're just very unfortunate.
That's true.
But that helped me a lot in producing and working up arrangements. And Homer and Jethro were a terrific influence on me. They were such good musicians. And Jethro knew every standard ever written. And so they helped me out so much, and I don't publicize that as much as I should. Yeah.
I got an old tape with
you and Homer and Jethro, you know, and Jethro says, well, Chet, what should we play? And you hesitated a minute and you said, well, why don't we play the one we rehearsed? You do remember that?
No, I don't remember. That was one of my finer moments. I'm usually not that funny. Yeah.
About your association with Merle Travis.
I first met Merle in 1945. I got a job at, he went in the Army, I heard, in the Marines, I guess, in 42, and when he got out, he went to Los Angeles. And so I worked up there for 6 months, and he came in, I guess, to see his kids, or I don't know why he came in, but he came in for about a week, and Homer and Jethro had him out for dinner and invited me out. And he'd heard me play driving in, and he was so nice and just raved about me till he died. He just thought I was the greatest thing ever, so he said, and who couldn't love a guy like that? He just treated me like a king, and then when Jerry Reed came along, he just thought Jerry was the greatest thing ever happened. And he realized, I think, you know, that we took the style on a little further, and then Jerry passed me by and took it on even farther. And so he was a dear, dear friend, and we had many, many happy hours and conversations together. The particular visit we had, we planned a trip up to see Mose Rager, the guy that Merle learned from. And see, I picked him up. He was staying at John Hartford's house, and I picked him up. And Dorothy, I said, aren't you going with us? And she said, no, you all need to be alone and talk. And so we talked all the way up there. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours up there to Drakesboro, Kentucky. And we went up and visited Mose, and of course that's where Merle got his personality. He's exactly like Mose Rager. Play a lick and laugh and dance. And then Merle was just like that, just like Mose, and we made pictures. Visited when we stopped to see Merle's sister, and had a nice visit there. And he told me that she had him reading and counting and everything when he was about 3 years old or something. Of course, he was a genius mentality anyway. Probably didn't need much help from anybody. He could do anything. You know, he could draw and could write and stories, and he just do anything. Yeah.
Did you ever make trouble learning the SAR and strike?
Yeah, I did, but I was younger then. Van Duzer put it on a tape for me, playing it slowly, and so I learned it from that. And he's the one that arranged it. And I don't think he's going to be here this time. But he sent me a tape the other day, and he said, this is a tape you made many years ago. I wonder if you can remember making it. And I would, dang, it sounded exactly like me most of the time. But once in a while I'd hear something. I said, well, that's not me, that's somebody else. And I called him, and I talked to his codephone, and I said, who in the world is that? And I don't believe it's me, but it's, and I hear now that it was him. He played electric guitar, and I swear it sounded just like me, but it wasn't a tune that I'd recorded. It was something I knew. But he's a great player, a good friend. Guy Van Duzer. Yeah.
Did you write one about your dad?
No. Two guys in Chicago wrote that. One of the boys is from Harlem. I added what I think are some of the good lines. I'm still trying to be like him.
You really can sell it.
Yeah, and yeah, I love that song. And it's who'd ever think that I'd have a signature song? You know, it's just been the greatest thing. A guy came by one day. He's a Scott Turner, and all he ever talks about is Audie Murphy. Audie Murphy was his best friend, and when you're around him, that's all he talks about. And it's interesting because Audie was, you know, the #1 war hero in World War II. But one day he came by and said, listen to this song sometime. He said, get you a hat and a spotlight, get out there and sing it with just a guitar. And it laid on my desk for 2 or 3 weeks, and I finally played it, and it just tore me up. And So then when I did that Cinemax special, I did it. So it's been a good song for me. I have to sing it every chance I get. Yeah.
The band ever heard you do that on that first take? Because when you came on, their response was like they were hearing it for the first time.
No, they hadn't heard it.
Yeah.
Terry McMillan had just lost his father, and he was crying, and one of the somebody else had died just a few hours before, one of the stagehands' fathers or something, and it was a terrible time, to answer your question, and so the reaction was kind of natural. Somebody in the back had up their hand. Yeah.
I just, wondered, any thoughts on Lenny Grove? He's been gone now about 10
Somebody
years.
asked it a while ago, and I started crying.
I really loved his stuff. Did he ever make the first convention?
I can tell funny stories about him, and I don't cry. Did he what?
Did he make the first convention? Chet CAAS convention?
This one? I don't remember.
No, yeah, the first time they had the.
No.
This is the 11th year, right?
No.
No, he didn't. But I've got he was the most recorded guy that ever lived. I guess the minute he'd walk in, people would turn on the tape recorder, and every time he played a tune, he played differently. And so I've got an awful lot of tapes of him. I'd say, somebody come in, play me a tune, and he'd play something. I'd switch on the recorder, and then he'd show me licks, and once in a while I'd show him a lick. And so I got a whole bunch of tapes, and I listen to stuff, and I think, damn, I remember he showed me. Now I've forgotten a lick, and he'd play arpeggios and fourths and everything. Very interesting stuff, and I need to listen to those tapes more, learn a few new licks yet.
Did you know Lenny's parents?
Oh, I knew Lenny's parents well. We toured together in 1954 or 5, RCA Victor tour. Hal Pine and Betty Cody. And I played up in that area last 2 or 3 years ago, and some guy walked up and gave me a picture of Lone Pine Jr., of course, who was Lenny Breau, and a picture of him playing guitar when he's 3 years old, and he's already down in that dusty area. And he had a pick, and he's holding it right. This thing, I've got it on my wallet in my office. And yeah, they were good, and they told me, he said, Betty, you got to hear my son Lenny. He's 11 years old, plays just like you. Yeah.
You remember Standell amplifier?
Oh yeah, Standell. I'm going to bring my Standell to the show Saturday night and play through it. It's the best sound that I ever got, and I used it all the time. And but it was never right. It would shock me all the time. If I touched anything grounded, I could turn the plug over and it would still shock me.
Yeah, Gary Lambert was a good friend of mine, and you and Gary Lambert was kind of
Yeah.
behind it a little bit. I guess it was a very...
Yeah, well, Ray Butts worked on it a few years ago, and that doesn't shock me, so I play through it quite a bit. But it needs a filter in it. The nylon string gets a low thump when I play through it, so I need to ask Ray what kind of capacitor to put in it so it'll cut off the low end of the guitar. Go ahead, yeah.
I just want to let you know that I got a Standell in my trunk of my car out there.
Yeah, he built great amplifiers, and then he came in here a year or so ago to visit Paul Yandell, and I visited with him. And I guess what ruined him was transistors. He tried to make transistor amp, and it was terrible. He got some bad parts from somewhere years ago. Yeah.
Do you have any stories about you and Odell Martin?
I don't have any stories about me and Odell, but Paul does. Paul worked, I think he got Odell his first job or something. And Odell was a great finger picker of the Mose Rager, Merle Travis tradition. And he'd come see me all the time, and he's always talking and jabbering, and he had a car wreck and his eyes were messed up and he was seeing double, and it drove him crazy. He'd always complain about that. And I guess Paul was talking about him the other day. He said the bottle let him down. I think he was drinking when he had the wreck and died. But I saw his daughter the other day somewhere. I think it was Summer Lights. I played down there. Susie Boggess and I did a little set, and she came over and said hello. I was glad to see her. Yeah.
What happened to your invisible bass man?
Parts of that are laying around in my basement. They're about all gone. I ran into an engineer in 1958, and he was one of the sharpest guys, but he was on drugs. His name was Bob Ferris. And he taught me so very much. And so I'd go by parts, and we made this divider, and which would play an octave lower. And we had distortion, we had fuzz, we had all that, and I was smart enough to use it. You know? He showed me how you can play an octave and a fifth, and you get an octave lower, like everybody uses now. That's where they get the low sound. And I thought, well, that's nice, but it's not me. You know? One day over at Columbia Records, one of the inputs in the console got to distorting, and Grady was playing, and it was coming out an octave lower. And he said, "Oh, we'll switch you to another channel." And he said, "No, let's use that." Marty Robbins, don't worry. It's the first time it's ever used. So Grady, somebody should build a monument to him. He's down here raising cattle now. He doesn't work with Willie anymore. Yeah.
The song Blue Angel, what type of, where did that song come from?
Nato Lima wrote that, and he's here, the Los Indios Tabajeras, and he's influenced me a lot. He's a great guitar player.
I love that song, and I wondered if it was a piano piece or...
No, he wrote it, and
for guitar.
it was so hard for me to learn because he tuned his guitar up a minor third, which means he played it in C minor. And boy, I tried to learn that thing, and I finally did. I worked out my own version and play it kind of like he plays it, but he plays it
The record was
different.
your record.
Yeah, and he'll play. I think he's going to play it. I don't know when he's going to. You can find your program when he's here, but he'll play it. And he wrote a tune called "Lovely Weather," and I still play a lot of it. And it's a terrible title, but he doesn't know. He's from Brazil or something. But that's an interesting story. These guys found a guitar and didn't know what it was, and finally a soldier came by and played it. And they got out of there and studied classical guitar in Mexico. And he's like Merle Travis, you know. He can sculpt, he can draw. And he said, I did not but to read out of big books. I learned how to little books, and I learned how to read big book. And he'll probably call me there and said, Neto. And I thought somebody's going to put a hit on me. And he talked for about 5 minutes, and I didn't understand the dang words. The doctor can understand him pretty well. And Paul McGill. Paul understands every word he said. He builds guitars for me. Once in a while I'll catch a phrase. But I love it. Somebody else, yeah.
How much time do you spend practicing?
Well, not as much as I should. There's so much. My wife is watching the Braves play, and there's always some good old movie on. But I practice a little bit. Not as much as I should. But I lived with a guitar for most of my life when I was a kid. I took it with me to the bathroom, to the bedroom, everywhere. So, yeah. To Luttrell. I don't go up there as much as I should because my mother died. And all I have up now, I have a sister there, and I have a bunch of first cousins. But I had such a terrible time up in that area, you know. I lived there till I was 11. It was during the Depression, and pretty bad time for me. And so I don't love Luttrell a lot. I have, well, that's enough to say about Luttrell, but I've got a lot of kin folks up there, and Buster's there. That's good. Yeah.
Chet, do you like Hawaiian music? Any chance you love Hawaiian music?
I love Hawaiian music, and I'm going to play a tune tomorrow night, Saturday night, that I learned from Martin Osler, and he heard it on a Gabby Pahanui record, and it's a lot like the song by Rex Griffin, Just Call Me Lonesome, from now. They take tunes like that they hear and put in a little Hawaiian lick here and there, and we've got a new song, you know. But anyway, it's a beautiful tune. It's got some great licks in it. Yeah.
I've read the book Country Gentleman.
Uh-huh.
Will there be another book about yourself?
Another biography like that now? Maybe sometime if I run out of something to do, or if I get so I can't play, I might try to write a book. I might just get around people and talk and get them to ask me questions, and then I take out the questions. That's the way to write a book. That's the way Groucho did it. He did it, and Shel Silverstein told me, he said, that's the way you do it. He's he makes millions off it. He's got to make so much money writing kitty books, he doesn't know what to do with the money, and he doesn't. All he does is he owns a couple homes, doesn't have a car. I told him, I said, you can send me a check once in a while, I'd get rid of a little of it. Yeah,
Did you get to play much golf?
Nah, I can't play anymore. I used to shoot in the 80s, but I don't play well enough to enjoy it. I played 9 holes this week. Had a lot of fun. Archie, ever since Archie died, Archie Campbell, we play together a lot. I don't play much since he died. Can't find anybody who wants to play with me. I'm so bad. Go ahead.
You have any more albums planned?
Pardon?
You have more
Oh,
albums?
yeah, I'm planning an album now, and I don't know what it'll turn out to be, but we're looking for a producer. It'll be for CBS. The thing about doing an album about Django, I wrote a tune about him, and I'll sing a couple of verses, and then he'll go into I'll See You in My Dreams, and I'll play harmony with him. And then maybe do some of these tunes. I've got a bunch of tunes I've written I don't want to record, but gotta wait till CBS is ready for them. Yeah, go back.
Kent, has there ever been a tune that you have regular difficulty learning?
Oh yeah, all the time. Pat Donahue's coming in. When's he coming in for you?
Tomorrow.
He plays tunes I never thought of. He plays Tico solo. He's crazy. I don't know. He's a terrific finger picker. And he's written a tune called Stealing from Chet that we did on Garrison Keeler show. He'll probably do that Saturday night or sometime. But he's a heck of a player. But yeah, there's a tune called Flapperette I've tried to play for years, fingerstyle, and I can't. I'm gonna put it on him sometime and drive him crazy and see if he can play it. It's an old piano solo or accordion tune. The bass line goes chromatically. Not chromatically. It descends. Part of it's chromatic. And it's got a real neat melody, and you can play both at the same time, but it's easy on the accordion, I guess. Flapperette. And all the time the bass line is going die, boom, 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 boom. And you run out of low strings. It's a drill. Anybody else?
Do you use your right hand pinky at all?
Do I use my right hand one?
Right hand pinky?
This finger.
Little finger.
This finger.
Sometimes,
Oh, you did?
yeah, a little bit. Lenny used it a lot. Because he played some chords, where he needed the five finger. And his little finger on his left hand was like my first finger. He played bass a lot. I developed it, yeah.
Are you playing now again tomorrow night?
Saturday.
Saturday.
If you want to hear it, but I'll have to go home and practice it.
I don't think so.
But Roy Clark will play it for you. He says, I can't spell it, but I can play it. I think he said that. One more? Yeah.
Chet, we're also glad that you became a guitar player. And had you become a professional baseball player, then we'd be all pretty silly having these guitars here. I was wondering by chance if you could sign my guitar.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a time?
Yeah, what we'll do now is, those of you who have met Chet and have autographs and just wanted to enjoy the meeting can file out, and then we'll start with the front row. Anyone who has never had an autograph or has a guitar to sign will come up row by row, and those of you who don't need to stay can file out. And when the row in front of you is finished, then they'll file out and the row behind can come up.
That's cause I'm on the back nine. If it were basketball, I'm in the 5-minute overtime, and I got a parcel of my time out. Don't have much left, folks.